Let's understand the JavaScript promises. So JavaScript promises is being introduced in the next generation JavaScript in the ES6, that is 2015 version of the JavaScript. So previously we used to, for the same reason we used callbacks and many other things to complete asynchronous behavior in JavaScript. But with the increasing complexity of the callbacks on the callbacks hell, the promises started introducing to simplify the asynchronous operation behavior in the JavaScript. So let's try to build a small callback functionality and try to introduce some problem in that, and let's see how we can solve that with promises. So let me build a small example here. Let with a function, for example, work1. I don't take any parameter here for now, and I'm writing set timeout. It will take 2 seconds to get completed, for example, and then I'll mention work1 is completed. So this is how my the work1 function works. A small anonymous function, the small asynchronous function I'm trying to build here. Let's see how it works. After the 2 seconds, I'm getting this work1 completed. But let's say while execution of this, there is some problem. There is some problem is happening while work one is getting completed. That could be any algorithm, that could be getting data from third-party server. Right now, this is just a simple one line here. So let's say there is some problem happening in this particular function here. So how we can detect that and how necessary repairs we can do when we are calling this asynchronous function. So of course we can write a callbacks here to understand the success and a fail behavior of our function. So for that, what we will do, we will just pass an anonymous function here that we generally do in the callbacks and give two parameters. So one is the success part. So what is the response coming? And the second is the error part. If it is failing, what's the reason for that? And here I'll console response. And before the response, what I'll do. So here I'm getting the error. Yeah, I need to remove the error because I'm using the anonymous function here. So if I'm having some error here, so let me just print what's an error, and let me just print an error, not something like a log, but something like an error here. And from there, I need to perform a return because no further execution I want to proceed. Okay, so we are calling the work1 and giving one anonymous function which is capable to accept two inputs. One is a success part, second is a fail part with a reason. So when it's failing, we are identifying the reason, we are consoling it on the console box, and then we are returning from here itself. And if it's success, then we are just consoling what's the success message is there. So let's come back here to the work1 function. So we should having a parameter here called back, which is our anonymous function that is passed from here. So the line where we are sure the work1 is completed, from where I can call my callback and give the success message and give a null in my error message. So at this particular line, what I can do, instead of this call log, console log, I can say callback and give this response, comma, null. So simply here I'm completing the work1. So what I'm doing, I'm calling the callback to inform I completed my work. If you want to proceed anything else, please proceed with that. And here you can see it is coming with some message here, and here the error is null. So we'll not go in the if part, and we'll directly on the line number 13, will display our output. Let's see. Yes, we are getting it. So this is how the manual functionality we are building. Let's try to build the same functionality with the help of promise, because here we need to manually handle if there is an error, we are writing some if else statement, then again we are passing the first parameter as a success outcome, then the second parameter as an error. These are our convention. But if multiple developers sit together, they can have the different convention. Maybe some developers will use the error first, and then they will use the response, and many more. So this could lead to a problem. So to solve this problem, the JavaScript ES6 version came with some good solution called promises. Not only this convention problem, but also the callback hell. So if I have the work 1, work 3, work 4 and many more, I need to keep increasing that complexity and keep writing a nested scope here so that it will create a great hierarchy which will be very difficult to understand and debug your application. So let's try to write a promise here which is equivalent to the functionality we have built. So let me just comment this area. So here I'll say the work 1, a simple normal variable which is holding a promise now in this case. Okay, and we'll give a parameter here, an anonymous function. This anonymous function will have two parameters. One is the resolve and the second is the reject. What is this resolve and reject? We'll get an idea about it shortly when we are writing the below code. I'll give you an idea in just a minute. And now here, let me just start my anonymous function. So here we are just creating a promise object and the parameter is anonymous function. Now, whatever the work 1 functionality I want to build, I can build here. Let's say, for example, the work 1 functionality is this one. It will take 2 seconds of time to get completed. Let it take no problem. In this case, it's a 2 seconds. In the real-time scenario, these lines could be getting a data from the database or maybe the third-party server or any critical operation which might take uncertain time, and that will create asynchronous behavior inside the JavaScript. Perfect. So now here it is getting completed after the 2 seconds. So what we are going to do, whenever it is completed, we need to call the resolve function. Whenever there is a problem, we need to call a reject function. So instead of this callback here, what I'll do, I'll call the resolve function. So what we understood with this, the resolve and the reject both are just a reference to some anonymous function, which we'll create shortly below this code. So whenever on the line number 17, my work 1 is getting completed, I'm calling the resolve by giving the message, my work is completed, and I don't need to give the second parameter. Because here for the rejection, there is a separate method that I can call. That's fantastic because there is no confusion of any naming convention by the different developers over here. And now we are ready with one promise. So now we need to start execution for this promise. The work 1 promise is now ready. It is ready to perform its activities. Whenever it's completed, it is going to give us one success message with resolve. But we haven't started its execution. If you want to prove that, let me say here, hi. So if the execution of promise immediately start, so after the 2 seconds, we should get this somewhere, but we will not get it because the promise will get only start its execution when we are writing with some specific syntax. So what I need to do, work 1 dot then. So here the execution of the work 1 start. And when you're starting the work 1 execution, what is important? You should give us what's a success function will behave, how the rejection function will behave, that you need to specify here when you're calling it, because the promise is capable to give you both things. Either in the success case it is capable to give you the message, in the error case it is capable to give you the reason. So while calling, you should give the both functionalities. So here what I can do, I can just say a response. We are going to get some response and we are consoling it. That's perfect here. So with work 1, whenever the execution is start, and when the execution for the work 1 will completed, either it could be after 2 seconds, after 10 seconds, after 15 seconds, we need to call the anonymous function given over here. And this function is indicating your resolve. And that's the reason you can understand here with resolve, you're passing one parameter, and here also there is only one parameter. And that's what are the parameter you're passing when you're resolving. So we are just consoling on the line number 22. So if this is true, we should able to see after the 2 seconds, work 1 is completed on the line number 22. Let's see in the Chrome. Let's wait for 2 seconds. Yes, we are getting our output and this is coming from line number 22, which is an expected behavior in this case. What's the next one? The next one is, let's say there is some problem in the work 1 execution. In the work 1, you're calling some database or maybe the third party. service which is temporarily down, or there are some errors in that, and the work one is not able to complete its functionality. So in that case, it is not going to give you the result. In that case, you need to reject it. So this promise you need to reject. So let me just comment out this part here and call the reject functionality and give a reason here. What's the reason? For example, work one failed, for example, and this is getting failed after the 2 seconds. But if you see, when you're calling your promise, you are just having the success condition you have written. You haven't written what should happen when the fail, your promise is getting failed. Without writing that code, let's see in the browser what's happening. Very first thing, your browser is giving you very clear error, uncaught in promise work one failed. So it's very clearly saying that the error which occurred on the line number 18, you are not handling it very well here. So we are missing with the code which is capable to handle the error occurred in the work one promise. If you want to do that, so what we can do, we can just apply one more function here. And before applying that, you need to understand this is a then function which is starting here and ending over here. So I can just apply one more chain here, and in this particular chain I can just say catch. So what I'm trying to do in the catch, so what are the errors are happening in the work one promise, I can catch it here. That's perfect. And in catch I can get the error here, and let's again write a small arrow function here and console. And instead of console, I guess it is better to write console.error and display the error on this on the console box. So now here, the work one promise, we started it execution. We are ready with the two possibilities. What should happen when the success is when the work one is completed successfully, and how we should handle whenever it's rejected. So let's see the outcome now. Yes, the work one failed, and this is coming from the line number 27. So it means we are also having some code in which we can decide what should happen if the work one is failing. So this is a very systematic control on an asynchronous function by handling both the possibilities of success and the fail. Now there is also one more last, that is finally. So with this particular finally, what we can do, let me write an anonymous function here again and just write finally, and finally block. Okay, so we understood there is a possibility to get success, there is a possibility to get the rejection with some specific reason here. But we should have some specific code which will get executed in any case. Either it could be a success or it could be the false. And why exactly is needed? It is similar to the try catch you might have understood or maybe studied in other programming language or the scripting language. In finally block, we can execute any code regardless of your success or the failure of your work. So what you can do here, if you are handling any file, you can close that file here. If you are creating any database connection, you can close your database connection. Or if you created some connections with third-party services and suddenly your program got crashed, so you must compulsorily close all those connections. So all those wrap up and the cleanup activities we need to create inside the finally block. And that's what the finally block represents. And now in this case, so we are having a rejection. Let's confirm the finally block is getting executed. Yes, we are having a rejection and the finally block is getting executed. Now try to have a success. Let me comment the reject functionality and confirm the finally is getting executed. Yes, the work one is completed and still the finally block is executed. So this is how the promise works in detail. Let's understand how the promises chaining works and what's the requirement for that. So we have seen a promise, how we can get a success condition out of it and get a rejection or the failed condition out of it. But when there are multiple promises chaining, how we can chain it together. So let's try to understand with few of the examples in this particular lecture. So we are having a simple promise here, the work one, which is taking 2 seconds of time, and after that it is saying success and giving some value back to us. And if it is giving a rejection, in that case also it is capable to give some rejection reason that we can do by using a reject calling here and by giving a reject reason over here. So in this case, I just want to go with a positive output with resolve itself. Here we are making use of the work one, and then we are specifying the anonymous function here, which will get executed on upon successful completion of my work one. But if I want to perform more operation on this particular outcome, which is coming out of my work one in some steps, how I can do that? And it's also requirement in real time. So let's example, I'm getting a response here. So this response line number 23, let's see, we are getting it a string, that is line number 23. So that's good, no problem. But I want to create a chain now. And in the next chain, I want to print the length of this particular result response. So what I'm going to do, I'll say dot then what is the response is coming from the previous. For that, I want to apply the length. So response dot length. Let's see the outcome. We are having some error here. Let me just confirm. Yes, we are not passing here the return statement. Return the response. Yes, work one is completed. This is in the first then block, and we are in the second block of then we are getting the length here. So whenever we are returning anything out of here in this particular anonymous function, so it means we are returning one more new promise. And again, to handle one more new promise, you need a then block with an anonymous function here. So when you're returning a response here, this is not only a response that you are returning a promise because you are inside a then block, which is already in an asynchronous behavior. So ultimately, when you are passing even a string, a number, or maybe a boolean or any other data type here, that will become a promise here. And to handle that promise, we are chaining here with a then block and anonymous function. So same result, I'm getting it over here, and in this particular stage, I'm doing the length calculation for this. So I'm trying to create a chain here. In the first, I'm creating the chain of two then blocks here. In the first, I'm just printing the output, and in the second one, I'm passing the length of it. And make sure the line number 23 is very important to create the chaining. This is returning a new promise due to which the second promise chain is getting executed. Now let's see if there is any error in the work one itself, what will happen in this for the second one. Because it's a chain of operation. On the successful, we know if it's a successful, we are going to console it, then we are going to return one more new promise, and due to that, the second operation in my chain will get executed, and there is no need of catch block then, and finally will getting executed. This is how we have already confirmed with our code. But now we'll try to perform some rejection here and try to understand the flow. So let's say work one failed here. So when we are failing the work one, very first thing we should understand, this then block, the anonymous function is not applicable. Again, the second one is also not applicable because it is a chain of positive outputs which are coming out of your promises. Directly it will go to the catch block and the finally block. Let's confirm in the code. Yes, so line number 31 and the 34. This is line number 31 and the 34 here. So this is how we are creating a chain. Now let's try to make a practical usage of this with some existing fetch functionality inside the JavaScript. Let me comment out this code. Okay, so what we will do, there are many third-party REST APIs available which will give you some dummy data. We'll try to get that data by using a promise called fetch, which is an inbuilt in the ES6 version of the JavaScript fetch. So if you see in detail, it's a promise and it's returning a promise. We just need to pass a URL to it. And why it's returning a promise? Because this fetch function is not sure how much time it will take to gather the data, to get the data from the URL. So that's the reason it's returning as a promise. And that's what we have seen in the initial stage of promise. So I'll just try to figure out any third-party REST API which can give me some dummy data. Sample products, sample products, REST API. So this is the mostly used one, dummyjson.com, and here for the products, you can see I'm also getting the URL for that here. So this is the URL for that, and let me just open this URL directly here, and let's see, I'm getting a JSON data. This is a complete JSON data. You can just completely copy this code and try to view in any JSON editor. Let me open in JSON online editor. Let me just put the code here. Yes, so this is what the JSON is being given by this URL. So when I'm simplifying this in the JSON viewer, I can see there is a total hundreds of products here. The limit is 30. It means at a time 30 products it is showing us by using this REST API. And we are having an array of 30 products with us. And if I just open this, I can see from 0 to 29. Let me open the 0th one. I'm having the product ID, title, description, and many more required attributes out of it. So this is what the data that we are calling from any backend REST API, or maybe from your database, you can say. So we are not going to build any backend. That's the reason we're just trying to use any existing third-party dummy REST API provider like this. So in this case, I'm using this one. So let me just copy this URL and come back to my fetch functionality. So my fetch functionality require one input called URL, from which URL the data should be fetched. And here you can observe it is returning a promise. So when it is returning a promise, so it is exactly similar to the, for example, get data. So what is this get data variable now? It's a function. It's not a function, it's a promise, we can say, which is gathering the data from this particular URL. So get data dot, then if we apply, so simply we can say the response block and try to print what's the response we are getting out of it. So now here, this response is what is the response we are getting from the URL. Let me just print on the console and see. So I'm getting a positive response here, but this response is not at all readable and good maintainable if you want to use that to print on our HTML page. It's somewhat a bit complicated. If I want to again simplify that, inside this particular response object, there is something called as JSON. So what is this JSON? So this JSON will give you all the contents available inside this response in a JSON format. But again, it's not only the JSON data. It's a promise of JSON, because again, it will take some time to convert the data into the JSON format, which is an asynchronous operation over here. So I can create a chain out of here. How? So I'll again say return. So in this particular first element in my chain, I'm just returning the JSON of the response that I'm getting from the URL. And I'll create a chain, and the second element in my chain where I'm getting the response here, more I can say the JSON data. This is just a variable name. I can again say the response as well. But to be more specific in current situation, I'll say JSON data. Let me create an arrow function here, which is accepting JSON data as an input and a body of my anonymous function. And now here I console JSON data. So you can see a beautiful output in the JSON format we will be able to see. And that's what this one. So we are getting a limit 30 here, the products array, and many more functionalities. So this is how we are creating a chain of the operation for the promise, because in the first element of my chain again need one more promise to be resolved. So in this case, this chain will be very helpful. Now I can make use of this data to print it on my HTML to display the data on the screen by, for example, the list of products or maybe the images out of it and many more. So if let me just quickly try that so that I can show you how you can display this information on the screen as well. And we'll also try to implement one spinner functionality so that till the time the data is downloaded and it is getting print on the screen, on this page we can display a loading icon or maybe a loading text. Very first thing, I'm going to quickly create a table out of here. A table, the name of my table will be products. Of course, the UI will not be that much great because we are much focusing on the promise functionality. I'm not going to apply much CSS to keep it more simple. So I'll not write anything inside the table as of now. So here I'm getting a confirmation that the data is with me. So even if I say like let products equals to JSON data dot products, and let me just console the product and confirm in my console. We're getting the products. Yes, I'm getting an array. So why can't I apply a looping statement on top of it? Yes, we can. So let me say products dot for each. Second, yeah, products dot each, and here for each and every product, make sure it's a product and it's a products. So I am dealing with each and every product inside my for loop statement. Let me just again perform a console to get confirmed we are printing each and every product one by one. Yes, I'm able to print all my products one by one here, and that is happening on the line number 46. Now I want to build a table row out of it for each and every product. So while building for each and every product a row, what I need to do, I just need to create a row functionality here, for example, and this I need to create inside a HTML format because I need to ultimately append that inside my HTML code. So this is my table row. Okay. And inside that, I need a table data. This is my first column, we can say. This is my second column. And this is the third one. Only three columns I want to create as of now to make it simple. Perfect. Now in the first column, I want to display the title of the product. So we are having the product here with this particular variable. So why can't we use a string interpolation? So simply I'll say a dollar, curly brackets open, close, and I'll say product dot title. So how I'm exactly sure it's a dot title? Because if I'm console it and if I view each and every product in my console, I can see I'm getting the brand, category, description, and all. Along with that, I'm also having a title. I'm also having the images for these products that I can also get in array. So I can also say images of 0 to get the exact location of the image corresponding to a product. So for now, I'm just printing a title in our case, title, title, and the title. I'm just printing the title 3 times here because I just want to firstly make sure my table is getting printed and later we'll enhance it in more. Or if the details are available, we'll display those. Yeah, we are having a good description. That is also a good option to display. And let's say the last one, yeah, we can display the price. Okay, now we are ready with a row. Now only this row we need to keep appending inside my HTML code here. So for that, simply I can say document dot get element by ID for products, which is my table in this case, dot inner HTML plus equals to. So here I just want to display these tr and include this inside my HTML HTML area of my table, for example. That's done. So let's see the outcome now. Now we are able to see here a table in which we are able to see the title of the product, the description of the product, the price of the product. Now we can also display the image of the product here. So again, one more column I'll create, and here I'll say image. The source of the image is known to me, and that is inside the products. There is something called as images we have seen here. Inside the product, there is something called images, and we are having a multiple images. So I'll assume in our case, we are going to always display the 0th image, the first image inside our array. Let's see the outcome. We are getting a bit weird output here because the length of the or the width of the image is quite bigger as we expected. So we can simply reduce it by writing some functionality for that. So let's say I want to keep it very minimum, 100 pixels. It's looking good now. We are able to display the list of products. Now, the functionality that I want to build on top of this, to display this information, it is taking 1 or 2 seconds of time. Because, of course, when I'm calling this get data and fetch is happening. So downloading the data from this particular URL is taking 1 or 2 seconds. So till that time, I want to display on the screen a loading symbol for the user. So simply what I'll do, I'll just print a heading here with the name loading, and whenever the loading is completed, that should get disappeared. So I'll create one more h2 here, and here better the name of that I'll give status. Initially there is nothing inside this, okay, and here inside my JavaScript, before calling this get data dot then, it means on this particular line the execution is beginning. So what I can do at this particular moment, I'll say get element by id for the status one dot inner html, and I'll say loading. Okay, and when this loading, first of all, let's confirm we are able to see on the screen there is something called loading. Yes, we are able to see that. But as soon as this data is getting loaded, we need to disable it. So for that, we need to, yeah, over here. No, we are inside a for loop statement, I guess here. After the for loop statement here, we can again remove it. We can also use a more CSS like style dot visibility off and the display equal to none. But for now, I'm just keeping it simple. Yes. So whenever the data is loading, it is showing loading and then it is getting disappeared. So right now it's happening within a fraction of second. I want to keep it intentionally delayed so I can use set timeout and everything so that we can see the more effective outcome. On top of that, if I want to display anything more, for example, that's a status, right? So how many products we are having? I just want to display the count of the product. So it's better to write, for example, how many products are there? So we are having a products array in our hand, products dot length, products. Let's see. Yes, 30 products. Let me refresh it again. Again loading and showing 30 products because totally we are having the 30 products here. So this is how the chaining will be helpful inside the promises we have seen with a normal scenario. Then we have also seen with an example how the chaining in the promises will be beneficial. What is promise.all settled static method? So this all settled static method will help you to combine all the promises together, and it will return a single promise which will get executed upon the completion, upon the settlement of all the given promises inside it, which are independent from each other. Let's say you have the 10 promises and you just want to write some code after the 10 promises are getting executed either successfully or the failed, finally they are completing its functionality. So once all these 10 promises are completed, you want to execute your final code. So you can combine all together inside all settled and create a new promise out of it and write the code for the same. It is also useful in many websites. Let's say in many websites you want to create different sections and you want to get the data from different server to display it on the different section of your website. And you want to make your website visible only when all the contents are loaded very perfectly. So you can use promise.all settled. Let's see with a quick example how it will work. So here we have a simple promise that is work one, which is getting executed in 2 seconds, and finally it is giving us a positive result. We have also seen how to pass an anonymous function to that, which will get executed upon the successful completion. And if there is any error in the execution of this, we have also ready with the catch block. Now here, if we are having one more promise called work 2, and that is also get need some time, let's say 3 seconds it need to get executed. Now in the similar way, the work 1 we have created, we can create for the work 2, and all things will work very perfect. Let it come. Yes, within the 2 seconds it is coming, and this is coming within the after the 3 seconds. Now I want to write some code, for example here at the end by mentioning, for example, all work done. But if you see here, the all work done is getting executed very immediately, and then the work 1 and 2 is getting executed. But the line when I'm writing work done, I should only execute when work 1 and 2 both are getting completed. So if I just try to include this over here, what will happen? When the work 1 will complete it, it will get executed, but we are not sure when the work 2 is getting completed. Vice versa, if you do it here, you are taking care of the work 2 function completion, but you are not taking care for the work 1. So in this case, there is a requirement of a special promise which will combine these work 1 and work 2 promise together. So let me write here promise dot all settled. So it create a promise that is resolved with an array of result when all the provided promises are resolved or rejected. It means they are settled somehow, either with a positive result or maybe with a rejection with any specific reason. So it needs an array on which you want to keep an eye for completion or the settlement. Work 1 and work 2. So what it is trying to say now, the all settled is taking an array of promises. So what it will do, it will create a new promise which will get executed when both of this work 1 and work 2 are done with their settlement, either with a positive result with a value or maybe with a failure or rejection with a reason. And now here, if you just hover your cursor, it will also tell you, it will give you the new promise out of it. It is giving you the new promise out of it. So right now there are 3 new promises. One is the work 1 promise, second is the work 2 promise, and the third promise is which is being created over here. And now here I can just say then. And if you want to make it more simple, you can also make it in this way. For example, all work. So now all these 3 are equivalent. For example, the work 1, work 2, these 2 are the promises. In the similar way, all work is also one more promise. Now what I can do, I can say all work dot. Whenever the all works given inside these promises are completed, are settled with a positive or the negative results, whatever it could be, they are settled somehow. So I want to know what's the specific response they are getting. I'm just writing a small arrow function here and I want to perform a console on it. So if you look at carefully here on this particular new promise, we are waiting for its successful completion and we are printing the console. So it's very interesting to understand what will be the response inside this res here, because this all work consists of multiple promises inside it. So let's see the outcome now. Work 1 should take 2 seconds, then work 2 will take 3 seconds. And interestingly, on line number 31, which is here, what we are getting an array. And in this particular array, in the 0th element, we are getting a status fulfilled and we are getting a value work 1 is completed. It means for this work 1, it is getting fulfilled because we are passing result here. And what's the value we are passing? Work 1 is completed, and that's what you can see here. The second one also, the second work is also fulfilled and giving you the positive result with the value work to completed. And that's what coming up here. Now we'll try to do a rejection. Rejection by work one failed, for example. So this is the reason of the rejection, and the reason we'll mention, for example, URL not valid. For example, any dummy specific reason I'm mentioning here. So now what's happening here inside all work promise, we are giving two promises, work one and the work two. The work one promise will start its execution, and after the 2 seconds, it will fail by giving the reject here. And the reason is this one. In the similar way, the work 2 will also start simultaneously its execution with an asynchronous behavior. And here it will start after the 3 seconds, it will complete its execution, it will settle its execution with a positive response and by giving the value work 2 completed. And now here, when this anonymous function get executed inside this response, we will be ready with the two elements in our array, the results of two promise completions. Let's see now. So after 2 seconds, the work 1 is failing with a specific reason. After 3 seconds, work 2 is completed. And inside our final result, we can see the first work is failed and the status of that is rejected. And the reason is work 1 failed, URL not valid. So here the reason we have mentioned it. And the second is completed successfully, that we can see here. It is fulfilled, and the reason, the value of fulfillment is also given here. So at the end of this particular line number 32, we are sure the work 1 and work 2 are settled. It is not important they are in a positive way or failed with some negative results. Whatever it could be, they are finally completed its execution. So what I can say here, all work settled means all work completed, even though the work 1 is failed here. And also here one more important, the sequence, and there is no dependency between work 1 and work 2. They both are completely independent. We are coming on the line number 33 only after the successful completion or the failure completion of any particular promise. Let's see the final outcome. Yes. So we should use all settled when we need multiple promises to be combined and wait for its settlement with a positive or maybe with the negative results, and all the works are independent of each other because these things are getting executed simultaneously. Let's try to understand the promise.all. So what's the difference between all and the all settled? Very first thing, if you use all promise, the static method, whatever the input list of promise will give, if any one of out of it fails to complete its promise, so immediately it throws some error and we need to handle inside a catch block. So it is not something like a settled. In all settled, it is just important to get complete all the promise, either it with a success or maybe with a failure reason. But with all, if you complete all your promises with only the success results, then it will give you the positive. Otherwise, if you even fail with any one of its promise, so immediately all the execution will stop and it will go into the catch block. So it is also helpful if you just want to understand and write some code if all the promises given are succeed without any fail reason. Let's try to understand with an example. So in this example, we were already writing all settled and we were waiting for the work 1 and the work 2 to get complete. But any one of the work one or the work two is failing, still we are able to execute and get the result inside this positive area. But if you want to execute this area only after the positive execution of all these promises, then you need to write promise.all here. So now what will happen? The work one as well as work two, when they are returning only the positive resolve, then only it is complete, it is considered as completed, otherwise it will throw some error for all work. Let me just comment out the individual promise calls we have done in between here, which might confuse us. So in our case, let me just execute now. Very first thing, I'm getting some error here. The work one is failed and it is an uncaught promise. Let's understand it. I'm giving work one and the work two. Let's start the execution of work one. Okay. And simultaneously work two will also get executed because both are asynchronous. But here after the 2 seconds, it immediately started throwing some error here. And after the 3 seconds, it is giving us a positive result out of this particular promise. As soon as we are getting one rejection in one of the promise in this particular array, so we need a catch block here to handle our promise. So catch error. In this particular error block, let me console.error with this error message here. And now let's see the outcome. Yes, the work one is getting failed and we are able to catch that inside our newly created promise called all work. And that is happening on the line number 37. Now, when this block will get executed, when this successful block will get executed, so let's go to the work one and make sure it is returning a result with a positive outcome. Now, let's try to print the output. Now we are getting a positive outcome, all work settled, and we are getting one array here. Let's try to understand line number 33 and the 34. So on line number 33, I'm getting my result. So this result is coming inside an array, and that's very correct because on this particular line number 33, this response is representing the positive outcome of these two promises. So inside this array, the first outcome is the result, is the value of the first successful promise. And the second one is the result, the value of second successful promise. As we are passing the two works here, we are getting the two responses over here. If we are having the third one in this array, you will get the third one. Let's try to create the third one as well. Work 3 here, and inside our array also add work 3. Let's see the outcome. Yes. So in which case practically this will be used. If you are creating any critical website and on that website, if you need to perform 3 different works together. So 1, 2, 3. And if any one of the work fails, you want to identify that. So you can use this structure. If you want to create any situation in which you need to call 3 different works on your web page and in any one of that fails, doesn't matter whatever the success are there that you want to display, so you can use the previous one, all settled. So this is all about getting the individual independent work getting done by respective promises and how you're handling it when these actions are getting completed, when these promises are getting completed. So this is how promise.all works in detail.